I'm going to call the agenda session to order. We will have the roll call, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then on reports, we will have Paul Becker's monthly financial report and sales tax update. And then we'll get into the consent. And the number one on consent is approval of the July 19th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, a resolution to approve a budget adjustment in the total amount of $16,466, recognizing reimbursements from the Arkansas Municipal League Vehicle Program for damage to city vehicles. Chief.
Yeah, Mayor. So on May 5th, we had a police vehicle that was struck by a fleeing murder suspect. It caused a little bit of damage to the front of the grill and the bumper. And then you might recall that on May 15th, we had a pretty good thunderstorm. That may have been the last time that it rained here in Fayetteville. And with that storm, it produced some significant sized hail that damaged 5 of our police vehicles as well. So this request in front of you for a budget adjustment of $16,466 is just to recognize that revenue from our insurance claims with the Arkansas Municipal League, and be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have for the chief on this? Okay, let's go to number 3. A resolution to approve change order number 10 to the contract with Nabholz Construction Corporation in the amount of $505,652.42 for paving on Gregg Avenue and West Avenue, street work on West Avenue, and reconciliation of contingency for additional items related to the Cultural Arts Corridor replacement parking deck project, and to approve a budget adjustment. This is a 2019 Cultural Arts Corridor bond project. Wade.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yeah, this, like the title indicates, this is a change order for the Arts Corridor project. And so as we're nearing completion, it's time to do a reconciled change order. As a matter of fact, MDW, the landscape architects on the project, is compiling a punch list as we speak. So we're getting real close to wrapping this one up. So like the title indicates, the scope of the change order includes the reconciliation of construction contingency items. It includes streetscape work on West Avenue from Center to Meadow. It includes paving along Gregg Avenue and additional paving along West Avenue. So originally it was planned for the city's transportation division to pave these sections. However, due to their workload and our completion schedule, we added the paving scope to Nabholz to expedite the completion. The expense of this change order is covered with unallocated bond funds, phase 1 bond funds, and interest that was generated from the street bond funds. Now, I'll answer any questions.
What questions do we have for Wade on this? Okay, let's go to number 4. A resolution to approve change order number 2 to the contract with Flintco LLC for the construction of fire station number 8 in the amount of $233,625.22, and to approve a budget adjustment. This is a 2019 firefighting facilities improvements bond project. Wait.
Yeah, Mayor, like the previous item, we're nearing completion of our fire stations. Fire Station 8 is currently working through the punch list items, and with coordination on the Dean and Porter construction project, we hope to be moving in that pretty soon. This change order includes the reconcile of 1/2 of the service drive off Dean that is a shared drive with police and fire. Also reconcile of 1/2 the water main that serves police and fire, and reconcile of the landscaping. So these items were bid under the police department project in order to recognize some economies in scale. Other items in the change order include plumbing changes for the apparatus bay, adding security cameras, and access control and low voltage wiring. Finally, I'd like to update everyone on Fire Station 9. It is substantially complete, and there is a ribbon cutting ceremony scheduled for August the 5th at 8 a.m. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have on this? Okay, let's go on to number 5. A resolution to approve the renewal of 3 Special Needs Assistance Program grant agreements with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the total amount of $270,193 for the city to administer programs to assist homeless Fayetteville residents. Yolanda.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, Council. What you have before you is our SNAPS grants. These are renewal amounts, which are guaranteed HUD funding. And this is the funding that we use to assist our formerly homeless individuals. We provide rental deposits, utility deposits, rental assistance based on their need. And we just recently this year also started providing grocery deliveries towards the end of the month. That's when our clients are seeing the most challenge with their food needs. We also provide wraparound case management, which assists our clients with any of their needs that they may have for assistance or any other resources that they might need. So the funding just allows us to continue providing the services that we provide to our clients who are housed in our permanent supportive housing program.
Good, thank you, Yolanda. What questions do we have for Yolanda on this? Okay, let's go on to number 6. A resolution to authorize a contract with Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated pursuant to RFQ 22-04 in the amount of $69,610 to develop a citywide heritage and historic preservation master plan. Britt.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Britton with Long Range Planning, and this is a very exciting moment for us. We're finally to the point of a contract for our citywide preservation master plan. This came out of our City Plan 2040. This is an implementation step for the short term, so within about 5 years. So looking forward to completing this before 2025 as scheduled. Good. This project is made possible, one, by a funding allocation from 2020 by the council. That was $20,000 to put toward the project, and we were very excited earlier this year to be notified that we had received a $50,000 grant from the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. We do need to complete this project by the end of next summer to meet their grant timelines. And if you were looking at the very first issue of the agenda and the contract attached for this, you might see a slight change between that and the contract that we're looking to have executed. And so the state had asked if we could take 4 items that were already in the contract documents as a whole and put them at the very beginning to be very clear that those were going to be accomplished. And I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that. They asked that we added in a detailed project schedule, which we've had from the start. You'll see that as the second appendix. We have some dates that we need to meet for the state, and also you'll see our plan for how we're going to do public engagement and when. They also have us do an acknowledgement of the National Park Service. This is standard for this grant agreement, so need to make sure we acknowledge where the money is coming from. And then also that both the state and the federal government will be able to use and duplicate the final project deliverables, and that's pretty standard when they want to be able to share that this was a project success. And then also finally, we were very clear, and it was in the documents, they wanted to make sure that our consultant does provide print and digital copies of the final plan to both us and the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. So we're looking forward to the project, and I'm happy to answer questions if y'all have any.
What questions do we have for Britton on this? Good work.
Brittany?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. I'd like to just thank everybody for making this effort, for moving this forward. This has kind of been a long time coming. So I know there was kind of some fits and starts there in the beginning, but I think this is a great day, like you said, Britton. That's very exciting. And I look forward to seeing all the results of this project. So thank you and others for all your efforts in getting us this far.
Thank y'all so much.
I have one question. So, sorry, I was trying to flag you down there before you turned around. So part of this is going to be when we have public input sessions. Do we know, do you have any idea, since it takes so long to make people aware of stuff sometimes, how many input sessions you're talking about, or, you know,
Yes.
how quickly they're going to be done? And
So our plan, what we'd like to do is start public engagement in September. So take the next month to make sure that we're organized, start getting the word out. We have a lot of community partners in historic preservation and also kind of cultural groups that we're ready to communicate with if council chooses to approve the contract. And so we're planning on initiating that communication kind of immediately, looking at scheduling the first public meeting, hopefully for the month of September.
Okay.
And that would be kind of your large open house public meeting where we want people to come tell us what they think, tell us what their needs and concerns are. There will be a lot of staff on hand, both from our consultant and from development services, to be able to facilitate that. And then there'll be ongoing communication opportunities. But in addition to that, we're looking to have stakeholder interviews and focus groups so that we can hopefully make that invitation so that people are not just invited to show up if they want to, but that we're reaching out very directly. And so our long range staff are also really committed to reaching out to members of our community who we know we have interest, and continuing to ask the question, who else can we talk to? We think it's really important to capture as many voices as we can. Fayetteville has a very rich heritage and history, and a lot of cultural groups are part of that. We want to do the best that we can to give everybody the opportunity to know that we're doing this plan and to also be very proactive in that outreach. To that end, we are planning to provide project materials in Spanish, as well as provide assistance to members of our community who may need literacy assistance, and looking to partner with the library and then also be available through development services for that.
okay, that sounds great. You know, we just have, anytime we have any master plans that we're working on, you can advertise and we can mention them and they can be on social media. And then always there's somebody that comes out at the last minute. I didn't know that was happening. It had been going on for like a year and a half. So
I think we anticipate doing a lot of direct
Yeah, so if
outreach
we-
as much as possible and
if
using
we-
those great networks.
yeah, if we can really do that, you know, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
ma'am.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's go on to number 7. A resolution to authorize a contract with Ecological Design Group Incorporated pursuant to RFQ 22-01, Selection 9, in the amount of $65,000 for services related to the development of a master plan for Underwood Community Park, and to approve a project contingency in the amount of $5,000. Ted?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Real excited about this project. This is going to be our 5th community park. Y'all may remember that we got this park through a mixture of parkland dedication and some really great donations from the Underwood family. So this will be for doing the master plan for that facility. We plan to do a very public master planning effort. We've already heard a lot of comments from the public about things they would like to do. Being one of our community parks, we really want it to be a unique park. All the community parks are kind of have their own special theme or amenity package, so that they become really destination parks for our people. So that there's a reason to go to all these parks. Neighborhood parks are pretty much all the same, but these parks are really special. So at this park, you know, we have the Clabber Creek running through it, and some really wonderful natural resources that are really going to be able to improve the quality of it in lakes. So it's going to be real important to get a really good master plan that incorporates all these elements, and then also takes into consider all the connections. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, That's going to be a really nice park. What questions do we have in the council?
Hi, Ted, it's Teresa. Hey, I've got a question. Within your master plan work, are you going to look at all the history? I think there's the spring box that's there, and I know there's been some residents that have requested maybe having some street names, historic street names incorporated. So I hope you'll reach out to them, or they'll be incorporated into your master planning process.
Definitely. They've actually reached out to us. There's been some great, I guess, citizen historians that have reached out, and there's some wonderful history. And that old spring house is the site of one of the first the first site of higher education for this area. And some of the historians say that's the reason that the U of A is in Fayetteville. So that's a real important thread to put within the master planning process.
Excellent. I'm so glad you're aware of all of that and that they've talked to you about it. So thanks so much. I look forward to what you all come up with.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's go to number 8. A resolution to award bid number 22-38 and to authorize the purchase of dryer feed conveyor for the biosolids management site from Hampton Equipment LLC in the amount of $42,340 plus applicable taxes and freight charges. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Out at the city's biosolids management site, we've got 6 solar houses out there amongst also a dryer and 500 acres of hayfield. With these solar dryers, do the pre-drying of the sludge before it goes to the dryer, especially now it's working great. But since we've had the solar houses for 12 years, in order to get the solids out of the solar house and to the dryer, use a front end loader and take bucket by bucket, take it over and put it in the hopper. So what this conveyor is that we're requesting will go along the backside of the solar houses, where the operator will just need to drop the solids into the back of the conveyor, and it conveys it all the way down to the end where it goes into the hopper. Now, as you're aware, the dryer is currently inoperable, and we'll be bringing forward an agreement for a drying as a service. And this conveyor will work well with the proposed dryer that would go into place, but also it would work well with any dryer that we choose to decide to purchase or acquire in the future. So on May 31st, we accepted sealed bids for the purchase of this conveyor. 3 bids were received, and Hampton Equipment submitted the best bid of $42,340 plus taxes and shipping costs. The funds are available in the plant pumps and equipment account within the Water and Sewer Fund, and this was presented to the Water and Sewer Committee on July 12th with unanimous vote to forward it to the full council for consideration. Be happy to answer the questions.
What questions do we have for Tim on this? Okay, let's go to number 9. A resolution to award bid number 22-40 and to authorize the purchase of a submersible pump for the Farmington Sewer Lift Station from Jack Tyler Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $108,621 plus applicable taxes and freight charges. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. The Farmington Lift Station on Double Springs Road moves the sewage from the neighboring community of Farmington to the West Side plant using 3 submersible pumps. Historically, this lift station has struggled with heavy influent, a lot of rags and debris. And so the pumps in the past have always needed frequent backwashing by the maintenance staff in order for them to be operable. What it says is back in 2008, when the lift station was constructed, there wasn't a lot of thought put into the pumps. There wasn't anticipated the kind of heavy sewage that they would get there. So in 2019, one of the original pumps was replaced by a flight model submersible pumps, which is specifically designed to handle this type of rags and debris without seizing up or causing excessive wear. And since we put that in 2019, we haven't had to do any backwashing with that pump. It's worked great. However, this pump has been run continuously since 2019, and what we're requesting to replace the pump in position number 2 with the same model flight pump, which will allow for downtime of pump 1 if needed for whatever reason.
Okay.
extra questions?
What questions do we have for Tim on this one?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment that I would hope we would bring this pump up to the mayor of Farmington when we negotiate new sewer treatment rates. Thank you, sir.
Might be something that we might mention. Anything else? Okay. All right, let's see. Number 10, a resolution pursuant to 39.10C4 of the Fayetteville City Code to authorize the mayor to pay the amount of $23,749.14 to Christopher Alderman for sewer overflow damage at 727 North Rockcliffe Road. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. On May 5th of this year, there was a sewer overflow at 727 North Rockcliffe owned by Christopher Alderson, and this resulted in the homeowner's finished basement being flooded. Originally, he called a restoration company to begin remediation, but they were unable to complete the job. Mr. Alderson paid that company $1,200 for the work that they did do, and the second repair estimate was obtained from Northwest Restoration in the amount of $27,014.44 to finish the work. This was the only company that responded to the estimate. This work will include drywall and trim repair, floor and carpet replacement, cabinet replacement, and painting. Mr. Alderson will pay for the repairs and will request reimbursement. Additionally, Mr. Alderson and his family spent 3 days in a hotel while their home was being cleaned, which totaled up to $534.70. Mr. Alderson's insurance will pay $5,000 towards the damages, which has been subtracted from the total claim. So the total claim before you is $23,749.14. Funds are available in the self-insurance non-vehicle damage account within the Water and Sewer Fund. This item was presented to the Water and Sewer Committee on July 12th with unanimous vote to forward it to the full council with a recommendation for approval. Do you have any answering questions?
Okay, so the Water and Sewer Committee recommended this for Mr. Alderson for the
Yes, sir.
$23,000, but unanimous vote. Okay. What other questions do we have?
Tim, do we think that the May 5th rain contributed to this?
Typically, that is true. The infiltration of the sewer lines usually brings up either grease or roots and usually causes a stoppage, and that's what happened in this case.
Okay, anything else? Okay. All right. A resolution pursuant to 166.04B2 of the Fayetteville Unified Development Code to approve the dedication of a reduced amount of right-of-way on East Sparrow Circle of the Creekside Meadows subdivision in Ward 1 to 44 feet from the center line of East Sparrow Circle and to reduce the master street right-of-way dedication requirement to 44 feet from the center line of the portion of East Sparrow Circle. Got it. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go into a little bit of background, given the complication of it. I'm Jonathan Kurth with the city's Development Services Department. Our development code requires any subdivision of land to dedicate right-of-way that lines up with our master street plan. We've seen a couple instances over the decades where a project straddles when we've adopted different master street plans, and this property falls into just that bucket. The Creekside Meadows subdivision, which is southeast of Morningside and 15th Street, was originally developed and approved under our City Plan 2030 and its associated master street plan. That set the street width, the sidewalk locations, the green space widths. There were several lots, however, in the subdivision that could not be platted at that time because the developer was working with FEMA to produce a letter of map revision to remove those lots from the floodplain. And subsequently, they were able to get that letter of map revision, and they've submitted a concurrent plat to the Planning Commission to subdivide each of those lots, which would require them to dedicate right-of-way in association with the current master street plan. Our development code does allow, in instances of practical difficulty, to petition the City Council for a lesser dedication or right-of-way. Staff feels that this is an appropriate application of that request, and we're recommending approval and that no more right-of-way be dedicated. The Planning Commission felt similarly, and they forwarded the item to the City Council unanimously on their consent agenda. We've not heard any questions from the public, but I did have a concern in rereading the legislation text just now. It does list it as 44 feet from center line when it should be 22 feet from center line. So I don't know if
I did read that correctly, didn't I? Yes.
Yes, you did read it correctly. I did not notice that the resolution was written that way instead of 22 feet. And so I don't know if that's perhaps a better question for Mr. Williams, if that can be amended now or if it would need to be pulled from consent.
Why don't we pull it from consent and we'll have the proper ordinance just for on new business.
Okay.
And I'm happy to take any questions the council has.
Yes, what questions do you have for this? Okay.
Thanks.
All right, under unfinished business, a resolution to order the raising and removal of a dilapidated and unsafe structure on property owned by Leroy H. Schaffenberg, located at 2860 East Wyman Road in the city of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and to approve a budget adjustment in the amount of $17,800. Okay, Billy.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Billy Bryant, Senior Code Compliance Officer. As of today, no building permits have been applied for, and an inspection on the property today shows no signs of improvement on the dilapidated structure, and I can answer any questions at this time.
And Mayor, if I also may comment on that, when re-listening to the last public hearing for this item, we discussed internally how the applicant had noted that their intent was to potentially remove the structure or not object to the city removing the structure and then locating a manufactured home there. I did feel it was appropriate to share with you all that the current zoning district of the property would not permit that by right. So we've been reaching out, or in our attempts to connect with the applicant, we want to make sure they understand that, but we've not had the opportunity to convey that yet. So I just wanted to let you all know that in case that was an objective of theirs moving forward.
Okay. So you haven't been able to contact them yet? Okay. Anything else?
I will also say that I saw on social media, someone had posted, I guess the daughter had started a GoFundMe page for the father to try and raise money to tear down the house and to fix it or something like that. But it just started, I guess. They hadn't really raised much money. But. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not, I don't know enough to know how to even present this, but I would like to, in the future, have council and staff consider the way we handle these situations. The part I'm familiar with is in which technical staff apply the building code, which defines a habitable dwelling, and to let technical staff red tag a structure that's does not meet the code and is not habitable, and then have council simply deal with the funding if there's going to be a raise and remove. And I'm not sure that others would be comfortable. That's simply the system that I'm familiar with, and I think that it perhaps would serve the community of Fayetteville well as well. So I don't know how to bring that up for some future conversation to be agendized, but I thought that this is an appropriate time to at least mention it.
Okay. Billy, we followed all the procedures that we had, correct?
That is correct.
And how long have you been working with?
It's been close to a year. I don't remember the exact months, but we're coming up on around 10 months, I believe.
Okay. Does that help?
No, sir.
Okay, what would you like done?
Mayor, I think Councilmember Wiedeker's concern is, please correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is that these buildings continue to be occupied often, and it becomes a concern of maybe dislocating or relocating these people rather than a council decision on whether the building should come down or not. Is that a fair characterization?
That's correct. Is that I don't view this body as appropriate for determining whether someone should be permitted to continue to stay. The state has made that decision with the code they've adopted. So if someone doesn't have a roof, doesn't have electricity, doesn't have water, the state says that is not a habitable dwelling, and we would allow our professional staff to apply that code, red tag the structure. Then if the structure is a nuisance, staff would come to the council to request funding to raise the structure. But that leaves it as the appropriate technical decisions between the professional staff and the code. That's what I was trying to say, and I just was inadequate.
No, you aren't. I was just trying to understand it, but you basically have red tagged this, haven't you, Billy?
Yes.
And so we bring it to you, and as a body, I guess you can decide to not tear it down or not.
I think from my perspective, one of the things that becomes extremely challenging with these issues is that we're always asked to deal with things that are not, they're not cut and dried. They're not based on code, really. They're based on feelings and our compassion and wanting to help someone. And sometimes we've made decisions that I've kind of worried about in the letting someone stay in a house. And I kind of understand where Mike's coming from with that. So, that it would be a lot better, I think, in some regards.
I mean, technically where I come from, if an earthquake damaged a structure and it's unsafe, it gets red tagged and boarded up so that it is declared, I mean, the resident is removed and it is literally padlocked, boarded up for safety reasons. Then you worry about what to do with it afterwards. So that may sound harsh, but at least it tells the applicant and whoever they retain what standard will be applied. And I just think that it's a more uniform, appropriate standard for a community. I just fear that we may have more of these and that this would be the professional way to handle them. Also, I mean, I'm just not sure that this is the forum to plead, please let me stay to my own detriment. And I'm sure that this would require, if I was staff, I would want council to adopt some policy or something to give direction before I would remove someone and board up their structure. But I just at least think that it's worth me bringing up for a future council discussion. It does not have to be in the immediate future, but I think that this would preclude what is probably perceived as a waste of time on our staff's part to be coming back to us over and over and over again. I don't mean it to be harsh. I just mean it to be, the code is the code, and I trust our staff to apply it fairly.
I think that's a good thought, that we maybe look into that a little bit in the future, because I've often worried about how often staff goes out and how many times they call and how many, times they come to a meeting and they've done everything that they're supposed to do, and we're holding it or waiting on it again. And we all want to be, nobody wants to be cruel or lack compassion for the people that are in the homes, but it does put us sometimes in a very odd place where staff has applied the ordinance and the codes that we have and found the structure lacking, and we're saying, oh no, we're going to let them stay there a little while longer. So if we could have a little more clear-cut process, but still be kind and compassionate in that endeavor, I'd like to do that, so.
Okay, what else? Thank you, Billy. All righty, let me see. Number 2, an ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-022 located at 3061 East Skillern Road in Ward 3 for approximately 2.99 acres from RA residential agricultural to RSF 4 residential single family 4 units per acre. Jonathan, anything new?
No, Mayor, we've not received any updates or changes to the request, nor any new public comment. I believe the way the item was left at the last council meeting was a representative of the Woodbury subdivision to the southeast had an interest in corresponding with the applicant, and I've not heard any results from that so far. Thanks. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Is there any questions for Jonathan on this? All right. Let's go to new business. Number 1, a resolution to approve the 2023 employee benefits package. Missy.
Thank you, Mayor. We are coming forward and recommending the employee benefits package for 2023. We are recommending that we renew with the current vendors and plan structures that we have in place for 2022. With the exception of our vision plan, we are looking at moving our vendor from Superior Vision to VSP. And what this does is it knocks a little bit off the premium increase that we're going to talk about in just a second with Gallagher. And it also provides our staff with 2 options now for vision that they've been asking for, to have a core plan and a buy-up plan. And I do have Christy, our rep from Gallagher, on, and we're just going to go over a few slides that talk about the renewal process.
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Missy, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council members. So as Missy mentioned, a quick overview. The medical originally came in at a 19.8% increase to the rates. After some negotiation, they Blue Cross Blue Shield has come back with a bundled vision proposal that brings it down to 16.8. Gallagher has evaluated that renewal and has considered it fair. You've had a loss ratio in 2021 of 131%. What that means is Blue Cross Blue Shield has been paying out more claims than they've taken in premium from the city of Fayetteville. And as we looked forward to 2022, we really are trending at about 124%. So anything over 100% is really indicating that Blue Cross is paying out more. So as Missy mentioned, moving to VSP will help that bundled increase bring it down to 16.8%. And then the dental, we are recommending to renew at no changes with a 4.5% increase. And I won't go through everything on the right-hand side. Everything on that side is being recommended to renew with no changes at all. So we can move to the next slide. Just very quickly, this is just a recap of where your increases have come in and gives you a historical look back at that. So as you can see, back in 2018, we had a rather large increase. We have another one in 2022. This really is indicative of the cyclical environment of your renewals. And again, this is just a quick reminder of what the current plan designs are. You have a PPO, you have very few people that are enrolled in that. You have the high deductible plan, which the majority of your population is enrolled in. We are not recommending any changes to these 2 plans. And then as we look at this, this chart, you'll see that the 16.8% increase is realized here. I won't really focus on the PPO too much because of that low participation rate. But if you look at the high deductible plans, you'll see the with total monthly premiums going up by the 16.8% being shared by the employee and the city of Fayetteville in the contributions that are highlighted in orange. And on the HSA contributions, because of the high deductible plan, the city of Fayetteville does put money into the HSA accounts for those who are enrolled. And basically the point of this slide is to say that if you are a participant and taking the Healthy Survey through Blue Cross Blue Shield, you will utilize the most benefit from the HSA contribution. So a quick example would be an employee-only participant would be getting $849.60 per year for an HSA contribution into that high deductible plan that has a $3,000 deductible. So that's a really great, great offering for the city to give to their employees. Delta Dental of Arkansas, as we mentioned before, 4.5% increase. This is a voluntary program that the employees pay for. And we are not recommending any changes to the plan design. And then finally, the vision plan. This is where Blue Cross Blue Shield has come back, and they've been really great to work for. They've been really great partner for the city of Fayetteville. And this is where they will offer a choice. You'll have a silver plan and a gold plan. And so based on how your employees utilize benefits and vision benefits, they'll have now a choice instead of just one plan. So one plan is richer than the other based on what your employees would like to enroll in. And again, this is a voluntary coverage that your employees pay 100% for. Missy, I can turn that over to you to maybe add anything I might have forgotten.
No, I think that's a good summary. We'll just open it up for any questions.
What questions do we have?
I know last time we were kind of pushing it, the deadline. How much time do we have to make a decision on this?
Well, we need to vote on it next week because we've got education meetings scheduled with our vendor, and then we'll be doing open enrollments. The city does their open enrollment fairly early compared to other businesses. So we'll be starting those after we load all the rates and everything, all the behind the scenes stuff. Once council approves, then we start all the education meetings in early September. And so there's like a month lag time to actually get it processed and going.
Okay, so we need to act on it pretty quick, like next week.
That would
is what
be,
you said.
Yes, that would be ideal.
So I know we did like a survey last time or something. I feel like we had some input. Maybe staff send it.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to make sure we have input from the staff and everyone.
Yes, I can assure you that Staff Senate is, I sit on Staff Senate and they are aware of the recommended change, which is the one change, and are very supportive of it.
Okay, thanks.
Because this was the plan that they wanted to keep.
Correct. So last year, we
let's get into
made some recommendations of changing plan design to keep the rates lower. And I believe council received a lot of feedback that they would prefer to keep the plan designs as is. And so we are not recommending any changes to those plans themselves.
Okay. Sure. Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay. Anything else? All right. Let's move on to number 2. An ordinance to amend 72.15 parking restrictions on city street in general and for large trucks, tractors, and trailers, non-emergency repairs, to also prohibit overnight parking of motor homes, recreational vehicles, RVs, fifth wheel trailers, and camper trailers. Chief.
Yeah, Mayor, thanks. So City Ordinance 72.15 currently prohibits a person from parking a truck, tractor, or a trailer that weighs over 1 ton on any street between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. And so staff is recommending that this particular ordinance be amended to also prohibit the overnight parking of motorhomes, recreational vehicles, fifth wheels, and camper trailers on city streets as well. Periodically, the police department, the mayor, city attorney, city prosecutor, and of course, city council members do get complaints from our residents in the city about these particular vehicles being parked on neighborhood streets. And so without an amendment, there's really no enforcement mechanism for the police department to take any action unless or until we can prove that that vehicle or that trailer that weighs over 1 ton, or any vehicle that in the city has been parked at a specific location for 14 consecutive days, and it has to be parked at the same location. So you can imagine what kind of issues that, unless the vehicle or trailer is inoperable, you know, people can move those vehicles and it's not in the same location, so it doesn't meet that definition. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have for the chief on this?
Is this just for, you know, do we have any issues with, I know some communities have had problems with people in RVs living on the street and moving around. Is that kind of to get in front of something like that? Or do we have issues with that? Or is this just people leaving things parked on the street?
So all of the above.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. As you can imagine, you'll have vehicles that are being left on the street. It won't be parked in the residence, in front of the resident's home. It'll be parked in front of their neighbor's home. So it creates issues, not only quality of life, but it also creates issues of safety where they're trying to pull in and out of their driveway and they can't see around that vehicle. And you do have folks that tend to come to town. Maybe they're visiting, you know, maybe they're visiting a relative or something and they're parked on the street. And yes, they may be there for a weekend. So it would prohibit that as well.
Okay, okay.
Yes, hey.
Anything else with the chief? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So if someone does have an RV, are they allowed to even park it in their driveway? They just need to make sure it's in the driveway or in the somewhere on a flat area?
Yeah,
Or how
so
does that work?
they are allowed, yes, ma'am. They are allowed to park on their property, in their driveway, and they're allowed to park on the city street up until 12 a.m. If this ordinance was enacted, or this amendment to this ordinance was enacted. But they couldn't park overnight, so it prohibits that continuous parking on the street in that particular neighborhood.
Right. And then you mentioned the 14 days. So the neighbor can only complain if it's there 14 days, or is it now switching to overnight?
Yeah, so it's for clarification, I'm sorry. Right now, the vehicle has to weigh over 1 ton. It's very difficult for a police officer to determine what weighs over 1 ton. In order for that to be enacted between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. Current ordinance does say that no vehicle can be parked on the side of the street in the same location for a consecutive 14 days. And that's what makes it very difficult for us. Unless that vehicle is totally disabled, it's hard for us to determine whether that vehicle was parked in the same location. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Right, thank you.
So this does not apply to like a small travel trailer, just the bigger?
So what it applies to, it's very specific. So any type of fifth wheel trailer, camper trailers, but would not apply to like a construction type trailer. No, ma'am.
Okay, but any type of camping type trailer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, number 3. An ordinance to amend 51.171 standard specifications for water and sewer lines and adopt the standard specifications for design and construction of water lines and sewer lines 2022 edition.
Thank you, Mayor. The standard specs for design and construction of water and sewer lines is intended to standardize, simplify, and expedite the process of water and sewer design and construction within the jurisdiction of the city of Fayetteville. The 2017 edition of those standard specs was adopted in October 2017. And then in 2019, the document was amended for administrative items related to professional endorsements, of new city staff. The 2022 edition includes a variety of technical adjustments and clarifications to better assist developers, engineers, and city staff, and reviewers and inspection staff. It represents accumulation of several years of product reviews and field observation of the best practices we can use. The modifications provide better clarity and definition of the city's expectation for construction of water and sewer infrastructure by private developers and their contractors. Some of the changes for this spec include a clarification on responsible parties, how to apply for a variance that you might need. It also has domestic steel requirements. It has clarification on easements and building setbacks. It has the updated references to other city standards, such as the minimum street standards. And it has clarification to common field questions from engineers and contractors. This revision was approved by the Arkansas Department of Health on May 31st, and we're now going to be bringing it to the City Council for consideration for approval. It was presented to the Water and Sewer Committee on July 12th with a unanimous vote to forward it to the City Council with a recommendation for approval. Certainly be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have for Tim on this? Okay. Number 4, an ordinance to waive competitive bidding and accept a quote in the amount of $150,671.03 plus applicable taxes and freight charges from J.A. Riggs Tractor Company, DBA Riggs Rental Services for the emergency rental of 2,000 kilowatt generator for the Nolan Water Resource Recovery Facility, and to approve a project contingency in the amount of $30,134.21. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. So on July the 8th, the 2,000 kilowatt generator at the Nolan wastewater treatment plant failed. The engine's wet sleeve cylinder inserts failed, which introduced antifreeze into the crankcase. The engine and the generator will need to be rebuilt. The facility cannot operate without a generator due to load shedding requirements, so a rental generator is required for this emergency. Now, to go in a little bit to load shedding, it's performed the same time every year from the beginning of June through the end of September, and it concerns our 3 largest electrical users, the Nolan plant, the Westside plant, and the Hamstring lift station. Load shedding requires the city to avoid being on the grid during the time when the usage peak is determined by the Arkansas Electric Cooperative Commission and their standards. And that covers Northwest Arkansas, Western Arkansas, and Southwest Arkansas. The program is set up to penalize anyone who is using power at all during the 15-minute period each month when the demand is at the highest. This is determined by the AECC. The city would have to pay an enormous penalty for each kilowatt of demand that we're using during that time. And the peak can be established more than once in any given month. They'll think it's going to be the hottest day and they'll set the peak, and then it'll be hotter and then set the peak again. Also, it doesn't matter about the area. It could be, the peak could be set in Jonesboro, and we would still have to honor it here in Fayetteville. So the situation is not without risk, but there is also not without reward. We save approximately $300,000 per year by using these generators to get the off-peak electrical rate, which includes allowing for the cost of operating the generators and the monitoring programs that we use. We use a third party to monitor the website and monitor when they think that the peak is going to be established, and they can actually turn on our generators for us so we don't risk missing that 15-minute of peak demand. We started using the system in 2005, and so at all 3 locations, the generators have basically paid for themselves in this length of time. The Nolan plant is the biggest user of power, and therefore the plant where we have the largest savings. And since 2005, we can say that the generator has probably paid for itself more than twice. A rental generator was procured on the 9th, the day after that we had the failure, and was set up that day to temporarily replace the failed generator. Riggs Rental Services provided a quote in the amount of $150,671.03, which will secure the rental of the generator for up to 4 months. That is how long it should take to get the generator rebuilt. Riggs is the only authorized and certified Caterpillar distributor and maintenance provider in our area. If the generator does not take 4 months, then Riggs will only bill us for the exact time that we used to rent it. If the city doesn't get the rental generator online in time, we would not be available to load shed when required, is where we got the rental. Fines associated with not getting off the grid, as well as the loss of the discount rate that you would get for the rest of the year, could amount to as much as $250,000 for one occurrence. That would be the worst case scenario. So funds are available in the wastewater treatment plant building improvement account for this rental. And this item has not went before the Water and Sewer Committee because it actually happened after the agenda was set and everything's going. So we did email the Water and Sewer Committee to let them know that this was coming, and I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have from the council? Is this going to go before the Water and Sewer Committee, or just as a council as a whole?
It's just going to go, unfortunately, it's going to go in front of the council with partial knowledge from the Water and Sewer Committee, because we can't afford to wait until the second Tuesday of September.
Okay. Teresa, is that okay?
Yes, sir. It seems like it's a serious emergency, and I appreciated Tim sending this out to the committee yesterday with a lot of information.
You're on that committee too.
Yes, sir. And I can assure you, Mr. Mayor, every resident running their air conditioner appreciates that load being shed from the grid to keep us operational. So thank you, Tim.
Okay, I'm just checking. All right. Any other questions? Okay, number 5, an ordinance to waive competitive bidding and accept a quote in the amount of $251,509 plus applicable taxes, freight charges from J.A. Riggs Tractor Company, DBA Riggs Cat, for the rebuild of a generator for the Nolan Water Resource Recovery Facility, to approve the purchase of a 5-year warranty in the amount of $15,181 and to adopt a project contingency in the amount of $50,301.80. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. So we just talked about running the generator because the one at the plant failed. So it's currently operating in place of the failed generator, and Riggs Cat did provide a rebuild quote in the amount of $251,509 plus taxes, which will fully rebuild the generator and its engine. Riggs is currently also offering a 5-year Platinum Plus warranty in the amount of $15,181, which will cover almost all generator faults and will also cover rental costs if it has to be down, and travel fees in the event that the rebuilt generator fails within 5 years. Riggs is the only authorized and certified Caterpillar distributor in our area. For reference, a new generator with this capacity, the 2 megawatt, costs $2.2 million, and there's a lead time currently of 1 year. So we would endure the cost of rental for an entire year, which would be over $400,000. We do recommend approving this rebuild and having a contingency of a little over $50,000. We do have the funds available in the wastewater treatment plant building improvements account within the Water and Sewer Fund. And once again, this item did not go to the Water and Sewer Committee, but they were informed via email. Be happy to answer any questions on that.
Is this Water and Sewer Committee aware of it?
They were about the same time as we told them about the rental.
Okay,
So it was on an email yesterday.
Okay. Are you all right with that? Son, you on that committee?
Yes, sir.
Teresa,
Yeah.
you okay?
Yes, sir. We're fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Tim. All right, number 6, an ordinance to approve vacation 22-017 for property located at 9 South Block Avenue in Ward 2 to vacate a 30 square foot portion of a alley right-of-way. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mayor. This property is immediately north of City Hall. If you imagine the alleyway on the north side of Mountain that runs north-south between that Mountain and Center, backing up to the buildings that front the square. This is on the westernmost edge of 9 South Block, so the building south of the Bank of Fayetteville building. The request is to vacate 30 square feet on the westernmost edge of that property. This is the eastern portion of the alleyway that runs along there. Generally, staff would not be supportive of vacating historic alleys, especially ones that are so prominent and such a significant part of our city. This one represents something of an exception because both the buildings to the north and the south of this, which were both built about the turn of the 19th century, have been encroaching into this alley and are not going anywhere anytime soon, or at least we hope not. And this building represents a slight cutout that the property owner would like to vacate so that they can use it for a staircase access. There's a sufficient built alleyway that extends further to the west that is currently accommodated. And so staff is recommending in favor of vacating this 30 square feet of right-of-way. The Planning Commission was comfortable enough with it that they placed it on the consent agenda and forwarded it to council unanimously. I'm happy to take any questions the council has.
Do we have any questions for Jonathan on this? Okay, I guess that concludes our business. Susan, what committee meetings do we have?
Well, before that, Mayor, we have a presentation from Alan Pugh. That's okay.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan, before we move on to the agenda presentations, I had a question to clarify. A11 on consent agenda, I believe it was said that it's going to be moved to new business. Where would you like to have that placed on new business?
Oh, I don't know. Let's put it first to new business.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we do have a presentation. Sorry.
So Alan, Alan and several different folks had experienced some new information coming from the state of Arkansas about some programs, and we wanted to bring some education forward and also some opportunities. Go for it, Alan.
Sure. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, members of the council. As most of you are aware, back in early May, we did receive a fairly significant flooding event. So we'll go over that just briefly and then just talk about some of these opportunities that we were able to discuss with the state of Arkansas and some other opportunities that might be available depending on what the council's desires are. So I believe it was on May 5th of 2022, based on our precipitation gauges out at Drake Field, we received approximately 2 inches of rain in about 45 minutes between 3 a.m. and 3:45. After having seen some of the aftermath of this, I'm somewhat convinced, although I don't have the proof, that we got more than that in certain areas of town in that particular time frame. We are seeing damage assessments that were very similar to 2017 in many areas of town that we know we had at least a 100-year event. So that was a little bit telling. If we can run just the precipitation estimates on that 2 inches in 45 minutes, it really doesn't account to a very large storm event as far as that goes. But we do feel like it's not telling the full picture based on the damage that we saw. This is a tool that's out there and available to everyone, and I'll click on this link to get you a little bit closer if you would like, but this really tells the tale of everything that was reported to us, at least immediately after the storm event. We have had some come in since then, but this is an active link if the council would like to utilize that, where you can go out and take a look at where this flooding occurred, kind of where, what happened. Was it structure flooding? Was it, other types of damage, et cetera? And one of the cool features or neat features that I think might be useful for you is you can begin to turn on our flood hazard area layers as well to see is that flooding occurring in our flood hazard areas or is it outside? You can see it's kind of a mixed bag. We did have a lot of areas of flooding here that was also reported in 2017 and 2011, but we had some areas that we haven't had previous reports of flooding. So that was an interesting aspect of this storm event as well. Just a few pictures for you as we go through here. This is pretty typical what we saw in most of the homes that flooded. Certainly very disruptive to those individuals to have to take out drywall, take out insulation, and in many instances take out cabinets and other things to try to repair their homes, dry them out. You can kind of see the fans going here in the background. Some more photos that we saw, just property damage, some high water marks on garages over on East Furman. That's in the Missouri Creek area. East Stearns Avenue was an area that we had not had previous flooding, at least in my tenure at the city of Fayetteville. We had several homes over there that reported flooding inside. You can see some of the damage there. East Revere Place is one we've historically had some flooding, but you can just see, it's not only the waters, it's the mud and everything else that gets drug into the homes that really creates quite the mess. Some more high water marks on some doors. North Westminster, which is an area that also was hit fairly hard in 2017. North Lindale Place was another one that was hit hard in 2017 as well. You can kind of see some of those measurements, 6-7 inches up on the door frames. Quite a bit of water coming into those areas. West Valley Drive is one of our repetitive loss areas that we've been targeting, and we specifically spoke with the Arkansas Department of Natural Resources with that. They used to be the Arkansas Natural Resource Commission, if you're familiar with them, but they've since changed their name. And here again, you can just see the debris and the mud and everything else that's brought into these homes. I did have an opportunity to speak with the tenants here. Apparently there was quite a bit of water stacked up on the front door, and not knowing what would happen, wanting to know what was going on outside, they opened the door, and it brought in everything else with it, unfortunately. So certainly a natural reaction I think that we would all have, and then had to bear the consequences of that. Northwest End Apartments, which was a highly publicized area of town that flooded again. You can kind of see how far it was up on these door frames, some of the mud and everything else that was tracked in. And then just some of the velocities of the water you can see in this lower left-hand picture, where it's just, pushing cars around, shoving debris into the wheel wells, things like that. In many instances, totaling out vehicles. I've talked to several residents whose vehicle was ruined in that particular event and couldn't use it anymore, not drivable. So one of the ancillary impacts that I don't think we think about a lot, but certainly an impact to those residents who then have to try to replace vehicles, especially in today's market. So really what we looked for was really this repetitive loss area for Hamstring Creek. So we wanted to focus there because it is one of our harder hit areas of town. Council did approve some money for a flood study to determine, are there physical things that we can do to reduce the flooding in those areas? Could we put detention in? Could we widen drainage channels? Could we put in larger culverts, et cetera? Unfortunately, that flood study was indicating that even in combination, many of those things weren't moving the needle far enough as far as the flooding goes to help these residents not flood, at least not inside their homes. So that caused us to look elsewhere, potential buyout programs or potential to elevate structures and help with the funding to be able to do that. So we were able to talk to the Department of Natural Resources and talk about some grant opportunities. One was the Flood Mitigation Assistance, or FMA grants. Both of these things that we'll talk about briefly are 75-25, 75 federal, 25% local match. They can get into a higher federal dollar, but there's some extenuating circumstances that we may or may not meet. And one is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, or the BRIC program. So the BRIC program is administered by ADAM, the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management. By and large, they are very similar in that they cover very similar things. They're both 75-25. They both have similar application processes. The main difference is the flood mitigation assistance requires the person receiving the assistance ultimately to carry flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's one of the nuances with the flood mitigation assistance, that maybe not everyone, if you're treating an entire area, but the majority of individuals need to have an NFIP policy. So we did talk at length with the residents along West Valley Drive and other streets in that area about what their desires may be. We're still kind of furthering that conversation with those individuals to potentially develop a grant application that would come before this council to hopefully vote to approve to submit. That submittal timeframe may be too quick for us this year. I think it's September of this year. We're estimating that those applications would have to be in, which is obviously a pretty quick turnaround for us, but we will do our best to keep the council informed on what's going on there. The other potential opportunity that's there, simply by happenstance that we wanted to kind of get some council feedback on, the West End apartments are currently for sale. They were listed for $1.4 million sale price on Realtor.com. We have had some conversations with the realtor and the owner, current owner of West End Apartments. We went ahead and ordered an appraisal for those just to see if that pricing was even in the ballpark of what it may appraise for. It did appraise for $1.39 million. I would add that those apartments, based on our conversations with the owner, are currently vacant. The residents cannot move back into those until some repairs are made or other things occur, which have not occurred yet. So we are in discussions, at least as a staff, to see, is that an opportunity that the council would like to pursue at this time to potentially purchase those apartments based on the flood study that we had performed for the entirety of the Hamstring Creek area. In reality, the best way to solve the flooding for those particular apartments would be to purchase them and remove the structures. And we understand that there's a lot of potential issues with that. Certainly they house a lot of families, or at least traditionally have, not currently, but they're about a 50-unit apartment complex with a few residents per apartment in general. I think there are some single occupancies, but certainly wanted to present that opportunity to the council to see if it's something that you would like to pursue. We obviously have not made any offers or moved forward with that, but would covet some feedback on what the council's opinion would be. And really, that was pretty much it. I think for action items, again, we will continue to work on the potential to submit some grant applications to help these folks in this repetitive loss area along Valley Drive, Hatfield, in that area. Those opportunities could range from buyouts and removing of the structure, or I think one of the other ones that a lot of the residents may gravitate towards was elevation. So we would help elevate their home further, which would allow them obviously to stay in the home, and it would flood around the house, but no longer get inside the home during these types of rain events. So while not ideal, it certainly allows them to keep their residency there, which I think is going to be a benefit to a lot of the residents along there, to not have to try to search for new housing, especially again in today's markets. But and again, the other action item just getting some feedback from council on the potential to make an offer and purchase the West End Apartments. We had originally discussed that potential funding coming from our Phase 2 grant dollars, or bond dollars, I should say. There would be some opportunity to utilize those within the bond question. We did discuss land acquisition and have already purchased one structure on Cato Springs using those bond dollars in that program. So, Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add, or I know Chief Harden is here, if he can potentially speak to the life safety issues that occur every time we have one of these flooding events at the West End Apartments and in the Valley Drive area and other areas of town. That's just one of the ones we've chosen to focus on right now. Certainly welcome those as well.
Yes, as far as the West End Apartments go, we have been there multiple times on flooding, and it's not just, as you could see by the watermarks, it is completely covered up all the way to West End Street, over the street where you can't even see it. So, not only is it not safe for them, it's not safe for our people to put them in there continually. It's every time it rains like that, we have to go get people out of there.
So, what questions do we have on that one?
Are you looking for recommendations or a movement on the West End? I think I had talked to people about that 5 or 6 years ago that they need to be purchased. While I'm glad that there's a cheap place for people to live, the people that move in a cheap place don't need to be at a place that floods on a very regular basis. So those are barely habitable.
Yeah, I guess, I'm looking for a little bit of direction from the council on this. This is, you've heard what we're dealing with these apartments, and so.
And so one of the reasons we decided at least to bring the education piece to you today is because this, if we were able to buy back West End and also work with the other families on Valley Drive with some of these other programs, then we could really make an impact in the flooding in that whole area. So Alan sort of sees this kind of all as one big thing to do that would help a great deal with our flooding in that area.
And it's in a floodplain, is that correct? So,
Correct, Mayor. It's actually, most of those structures are within the floodway, which is a highly flood-prone area of the floodplain. So, and I guess I should add too, part of the reasoning between the proposal to use bond dollars or some other source other than this grant funding would be just the urgency while the apartments are for sale and currently vacant. I don't believe the current owner, in discussions with them, has the means to obviously sit for potentially another year with vacant apartments to wait on the grant opportunity. But certainly happy to answer any questions you may have there as well.
I have some questions. Alan, I want to thank you for bringing this forward and also for organizing that that presentation a couple of weeks ago from the woman from Little Rock from the NRCS. So thank you for doing that. That was really great. I'm wondering, it seemed, I was going to ask, did the West End Apartments, did they have national flood insurance? So would they even qualify for some of those grant programs that you mentioned?
I have not verified the entirety of their program. They are insured, I can tell you that. I can tell you that in 2017, 2 of the structures were insured with a private policy, and 2 of the structures were insured with an NFIP policy. I believe, and I would have to verify this with the owner, that all 4 structures are currently under a National Flood Insurance Program policy.
So they would theoretically, if we were able to put something in, and I believe there was another challenge there too, if I recall correctly, didn't the county have to update its flood assessment? I'm going to get the language wrong, but I thought the county had to complete a task before the city could submit requests for some of these funds.
Correct. They have to have an updated approved hazard mitigation plan, which is currently not current with FEMA's program. So they're actively trying to get that approved.
Do you think they're going to make the deadline? I mean, here's where I'm going with this, is that I really think we ought to purchase this property because this has been repetitive flooding. But if we were able to get some assistance through the federal government, if it's that 75-25, that would be $350,000 from the city, as opposed to the entire $1.4 million, if I understood that correctly.
I think you did. One nuance of that again would be, what is the status of those apartments a year from now when that funding may actually become available? After we would submit an application, maybe in September, they were talking potentially July, August of next year before FEMA would actually make decisions on all of those applications. And that funding would probably not be available until the end of next year. So that funding could fluctuate. So I would work off the assumption that during that time, if the current owner or whomever purchases it would renovate those and they would be reoccupied, just simply because it is an investment in income rental. And then you do increase your cost, although my understanding is there is availability for relocation assistance and other things. So I don't know that flat cost, if you will, would remain. It could still potentially work out that we would be spending less money, certainly, but the relocation costs could add up pretty drastically if we're relocating potentially 50 families into other areas of town. So
I guess that's also a big question. What is they're not living there now, they're somewhere else. How would that work if the city purchased that property? And then my second question, which is probably a Paul question, is if we use the bond money to purchase the 1.4 million using $1.4 million, and and we still submitted the application to the federal government, is there any way that we could pay ourselves back if the application was approved?
Paul's not here today, but that's a great question. We'll ask him. So I think we've got guidance to at least explore further,
Yeah,
Mayor.
I wanted to bring this to y'all because I didn't want to jump out and start doing a lot of work on purchasing land and stuff like that without clearing it with you, so to speak. So if you want us to.
Well, what we'll do is answer the questions, and then try to make, Alan will present at a pretty soon date the options for the west end. I think the window of opportunity is now, as he explained, because
Yeah.
it's not currently occupied.
Yeah.
Should the owner resell and then have the repairs done, then they will clearly want to occupy the building again. So that's why we're kind of between a rock and a hard place with the potential federal funding or state funding and this decision, which probably needs to come ahead of what might. But Teresa, you asked a really good question about whether we can repay ourselves. Alan, did you have an opportunity to talk to Paul about that?
I did not talk with Paul, and if I understood the question correctly, it was to repay ourselves with FEMA grant dollars. Is that correct? I can verify certainly, but it's my understanding that similar to other programs and grant, we would not be able to reimburse ourselves for something that we had already done. But certainly we can verify that and get that information to this council. I would also add that if it isn't a grant program, not that City Council may go this way and not that staff might recommend this, but there is the need for, it's a voluntary program. In other words, we need a willing seller and a willing buyer. Obviously, the city would be a willing buyer, but there are no eminent domain opportunities or anything like that. Not saying again that we would want to go that route, but just for the council's knowledge. And one of the opportunities we had currently was that willing seller to be able to deal with that property. So.
I just have a couple more thoughts, since you're going to kind of investigate this, and I really do appreciate you bringing this forward, Alan. Is that while you're looking into this, could you also investigate how much it would cost to demolish those units if the city purchased it? And then also just thinking about what would be done with that property. I would assume that it would be left, a lawn or in greenery because it is a flooded area. But I just wanted to, while we're on this, it would be nice to think about in the future how it would be used.
Sure. And those are great questions, and we get some estimates for demolition. I would also add that if we purchase the property, it's my understanding that demolition of the property, restoration of floodplain areas, either through reforestation and things like that, are eligible underneath either the BRIC or FMA programs. So if we purchase them, we could come back later with an application and include the restoration of that stream, if you will, to its natural state. So that might be an opportunity for us to be able to offset some of those costs. My understanding is it would also, I may have mentioned this, I forget, that it would include some of the costs of that demolition as well in a 75-25 fashion. So I believe our intent would be, if we went ahead and purchased it, to probably wrap that into a grant application to see if we could get portions of those costs covered through that program.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much.
But my 2 cents is we're not getting anywhere because every time it becomes a hard rain or a hard flood, that place floods and we have to evacuate a bunch of people. So we're going to have to take some action, but I didn't want to take action until I talked to you.
So we'll be preparing something for further discussion.
Yes, we'll be preparing something for you.
And Mayor, back to what you asked earlier, yes, we do have a committee meeting. It's Transportation Committee at a separate link.
All right, well, I think that concludes our business. Thank you all.